I don't lead a thrilling life, but whenever someone asks me for a scary story, this is the one I tell. A memory etched into my mind like a scar that never fades. It was the summer I turned 15, back when I was Liam, a kid about to start my sophomore year of high school, living in a quiet coastal town. That place buzzed, like a festival in the summer, packed with tourists crowding the golden sands. But as soon as fall crept in, it turned into a ghost town. Bars shut down tight, restaurants pulled their dusty curtains closed, and all that was left were us, the year-round locals, the gray sky, and the endless crash of waves. If you've never been to the shore in the off-season, I'd say give it a shot. It's strange, quiet in a way that's almost unreal, like the world's whispering a secret you'll never fully grasp. My house sat on a street called Surf Avenue, just a block from the beach. The name might sound cheesy, but I took pride in knowing how to surf. It'd be downright embarrassing to live on Surf Avenue and not. Since I was a kid, the boardwalk and the sand were part of me, like my breath, my heartbeat. I don't live in that house anymore, but it's still in the family, and every time I think of it, it feels like a piece of my soul lingers there. Back then, I was on the high school varsity cross-country team, obsessed with staying in shape, even during the off-season. Summers at the shore were scorching, so I'd run either at dawn or late at night to dodge the blistering heat and the crowds. That fateful night, I went for a late run. I'd stayed up with friends the night before, sleeping through the morning, so I didn't have much choice. I never took my phone. The thing was a hassle with no music and just enough weight to throw me off. Instead, I wore a beat-up little Garmin watch, barely functional but good enough to track distance and pace. The only other thing I carried was my house keys, stuffed into my shorts pocket. My parents were weirdly strict about locking up. Whether they were home or not, I had to bring those keys. I never got why they were so paranoid, especially since our little beach town was as safe as they come. That night, I stuck to the boardwalk. The wooden surface was soft enough to spare my legs, but not as punishing as the dry sand. I just wanted a long, easy run. No hills, no challenges. And the boardwalk was perfect for that. A few miles in, I zoned out, lost in that runner's high that makes you feel invincible. The slap of my shoes against the wood blended with the distant roar of the ocean like a lullaby. I almost forgot I was running until a tiny sound snapped me out of it. Clink. I stopped dead, checked my pocket. Empty. My heart sank like a stone. The keys were gone. I crouched, squinting through the gaps in the boardwalk, but the darkness below swallowed everything. No way I could grab them from up here. I cursed out loud, my shout echoing in the empty night. It might sound dumb, but the adrenaline from the run was still pumping, and I was furious this detour had wrecked my groove. Knowing my parents would lose it if I came back without those keys, I jumped off the side and landed on the sand below without a second thought. The stench hit me like a punch, a nauseating mix of rotting seaweed and stale beer, so thick and damp I could taste it. Every step stirred up sand and trash, the crunch under my shoes making my skin crawl. I didn't have my phone. Just the faint glow of my watch's backlight guided me, and it was useless. I knelt where I thought the keys had dropped, but all I found were clumps of filthy sand and garbage. I dug around, hands trembling with disgust, but I couldn't give up. I'd come this far. No way was I leaving covered in the stink for nothing. After minutes of nothing, I figured I'd misjudged the spot. I climbed back onto the boardwalk, stood where I'd heard the clink, and hatched a plan. I untied my shoelace, slipped it through the planks, and let it dangle as a marker. That way, I could crawl back under and pinpoint the exact spot. But as I stood up, something yanked the lace hard, and it vanished into the gap. Not the wind, not me fumbling. Something, or someone down there had pulled it. I froze, my blood turning to ice. Someone was under the boardwalk, and if they had my lace, they probably had my keys. Keys with my house address engraved on them. The thought of a stranger knowing where I lived sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to bolt home, but teenage stubbornness and rage held me there. I took a shaky breath, jumped back into the sand, and crawled into the damp darkness. This time, the air felt heavier, like the shadows were closing in. I heard a faint shuffle ahead, and my chest tightened. I swung my watch's light toward it, but saw only sand and rough beams. Then the sound came again, from another direction. That's when it hit me. There wasn't just one person. There were multiple figures moving in the dark, like predators circling prey. Fear slammed into me like a tidal wave. What was I doing? Was I really about to fight some creeps under the boardwalk? I turned to scramble out, panic clawing at my throat, but before I could escape, a cold hand latched onto my ankle. Pain seared as nails dug into my skin. I screamed, kicking with everything I had. My foot hit something soft, and the grip released. I clawed my way out, sand and wood scraping my arms and legs, then sprinted into the open air without looking back. I didn't stop until I reached my front door, pounding on it like a madman until Dad flung it open. He was beyond pissed. I thought he might hit me, but before he could explode, I stammered out the whole story. The keys, the lace, the things under the boardwalk. Mom woke up, furious at first, but when she saw the bloody scratches on my ankle, her face went pale with dread. Dad called the cops right away, and by morning, a locksmith had replaced every lock in the house. For a couple of days, life seemed normal again. I thought it was over, just a messed up night I'd try to bury. But a few mornings later, loud knocking jolted me awake. It was way too early for visitors. I waited in bed, hoping my parents would handle it, but no one stirred. Shaking, I pulled on a hoodie and crept downstairs. I peeked through the peephole. Nothing. I opened the door, and the street was empty. Just as I went to close it, something caught my eye on the doormat. My shoelace, the one from that night, lying there like a silent threat. I slammed the door shut, heart racing. We installed a security system that afternoon. For weeks, my family lived in quiet terror, but nothing else happened. Even now, thinking back, I still shiver. Someone out there knows where my beach house is, and I'll never shake the memory of that icy hand in the dark beneath the boardwalk. Looking back, I'm sorry if I fumble some details. This happened when I was just a kid, maybe 8 or 9, I can't pin it down exactly. It was one of those golden summers when my family would pile into my grandparents' beach house, the heartbeat of our clan, every year. Siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles. We'd all cram in for days or weeks, turning that modest, sprawling place into a chaotic haven. It wasn't fancy, but with its maze of bedrooms, it swallowed our whole family effortlessly, just steps from the shore. Those days were magic. Hours lost in the sand, tearing through the neighborhood on my bike, every moment a delirious blur of childhood joy that feels like a fever dream now, fading further with each passing year. But that summer? That one stood apart, shadowed by something darker, a massive hurricane looming on the horizon, stirring the sleepy beach town into a frenzy months ahead of time. They built these monstrous sand dunes along the coast, towering like castle ramparts to a kid like me, blocking the ocean from sight. From the boardwalk, you'd stare out and see not waves, but a wall of sand. Wild, surreal. Like the earth had swallowed the sea whole, my siblings and I would scale them, tumbling down the other side, pretending we were storming fortresses, invincible. The beach, shut down after hours. No lifeguards, no official access. But in a town where everyone knew your name, that hardly stopped us locals. As long as we swore off the water, our parents didn't bat an eye. I'll admit, I was a bit of a rascal back then, always testing limits when I thought I could slip by. That's why I snuck out that evening. The sun still hung high, not even flirting with the horizon, but I didn't ask. Just craved a slice of solitude after some petty spat with my brother, I think. The sliding door by the kids' rooms was my ticket out, a trick I'd picked up from my older cousins, masters of sneaking around for far wilder reasons. Barefoot, I crept into the boardwalk, expecting the usual scatter of locals or kids my age, but it was a ghost town, not a soul in sight. The stillness prickled my skin. I wandered, half hoping for a familiar face, but the beach felt asleep, abandoned, unnervingly quiet. I was ready to turn back when I saw it, a thin wisp of smoke curling up from beyond one of the dunes. Fog, maybe? No, smoke, real smoke, like from a fire. Bonfires weren't rare, though they were against the rules, a reckless tourist stunt, but that night, with everything so empty, it felt wrong, sinister. It rose from the dune like a volcano's breath. I scanned for an adult. Nothing, just the endless silent boardwalk. I should have run home, but curiosity sank its claws into me, and my parents' voice echoed in my head. Never turn away from someone in need. So I climbed, sand coating me by the time I crested the top. Below, a lone bonfire flickered. No chairs, no coolers, no people. Just flames licking the air. Abandoned. My gut twisted. Even as a kid, I knew an unattended fire spelled trouble. I slid down, marched over, and started kicking sand onto it, stomping out the blaze until it choked to death. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. Why would someone light a fire and ditch it? My mind raced. Arson? Something worse? I poked around with a stick and froze. Clothes. Kids' clothes, like mine. Shoes. Socks. Scraps of fabric half buried in the ashes. My stomach churned. Then I saw the photos. Charred husks mostly, but one still clung to life. A boy's face stared back. My age. Eerily like me. Same eyes, same jaw, like a cousin I'd never met. Fear clawed up my throat. I dropped the stick, heart hammering. I was just a kid. What was this? Then a shout. "Hey!" shattered the silence. A man staggered toward me down the beach, bald, features blurred by distance, lurching like he was drunk or unhinged. "Hey, kid!" he bellowed, picking up speed. I was a statue, terror rooting me in place. "Don't you go anywhere!" he roared, and that snapped me awake. I bolted, sand dragging at my legs, every step a battle. It was life, or death. I could feel it. I scrambled up the dune, his curses echoing behind me, closer, too close. At the top, nails raked my ankle, but I tore free, tumbling down the other side in a heap. I sprinted for the boardwalk, lungs burning, glancing back. He wasn't there, but I ran like he was. Home, I collapsed in my room, sobs shaking me. I wanted to tell my parents. God, I did. But the thought of admitting I'd snuck out paralyzed me. So I buried it. No news came, no cops, no missing kids, nothing. Years later, I still don't know what it meant. That boy in the photo, so like me, haunts me most. I wish I could scream at little Jake to tell someone, anyone, but I didn't. And that's a weight I'll carry forever.